how the hell does a motorbike cost the same as a road bike?
A motorbike like this can cost around £15,000 euros or dollars. It can hit speeds of up to 150 miles per hour and it can weigh 150 kilograms.
Whereas a road bike like this can also cost £15,000 euros or dollars. It weighs around 7 kilograms. Its top speed is never going to exceed double digits, but it is likely to have been ridden by some of the world's best at the Tour de France.
You're watching GCNTech and we're going to take a big deep dive into how a motorbike and a bike can cost the same amount of money.
That's absolutely crazy. Let's find out.
Road bike prices seem to be creeping up and up year after year, where we're now at the point where you can buy a fully blown motorbike with an engine and stuff for the same price as a road bike without an engine.
It's kind of crazy.
But let's start off by having a deep dive into the prices.
In 2022, 143 million bicycles were sold worldwide. Now, admittedly, not all of those would have been road bikes. That compares to motorbikes during that same period, which was around the 50 million mark. So 3 times less.
I didn't think there was that much of a gap between...
Yeah, like a big divide between those two sales. However, when you look at the difference in sales numbers, that actually kind of works against the road bike trying to justify its price, because simple rule of thumb is you make anything on a bigger scale where it helps drive down the price. Well, usually, however it would appear, that isn't necessarily happening with road bikes. Typically, you might be saying that a road bike looks less complex than a motorbike, but the rate of progression at which bikes have evolved is far greater to that of a motorbike. So next, let's dive into research and development.
So here in the bike industry, the evolution of bikes being made from round steel tubes to having frames that are optimised in wind tunnels, made from the very best carbon fibre, has been dramatic. It's happened so quickly, we've gone from one extreme to the other. And even now, from year to year, we're constantly seeing bike manufacturers and bike models being made better each year with more aerodynamic. They're going to save you this amount of watts made from better carbon.
Kind of like the iPhone, where every year there's a new one, the new one's better, lighter, faster.
Slightly different.
Yeah, whereas the progression over in the motorbike world and that side of things, I feel like it's relatively slow, because it's not uncommon for certain models of motorbikes to remain pretty much largely unchanged for years and years. And if you look at motorbikes which are at the same price point of road bikes, well, they're pretty much using the same materials and processes as what they were doing, say, like 50 years ago.
Interesting. But the money that is ploughed into road bike R&D is huge, and it is quite possibly the largest factors contributing to sale prices as manufacturers try to recoup the money that they've spent on developing those bikes that are essentially going to win the Tour de France. Which brings us on to our next point, race readiness.
Now, earlier in the year, we ranked Tour de France bikes from cheapest to most expensive, and Team Uno X were racing on a bike which cost just less than £6,000. I mean, if people can complete the Tour de France on a bike that's around the £6,000 mark.
£6,000 is still quite a lot of money.
It is still quite a lot of money, but when we're talking about £15,000 price point, it seems a lot more sensible. But if they can do the Tour de France on that price point of bike, I don't think anyone could ever argue that they need a £15,000 bike to go ride at the weekend.
But if you head over to the motorbike world, you will never, ever, ever see a motorbike there worth £15,000.
In the race element?
No, in the world's very best,
Yeah.
in the Tour de France equivalent of a motorbike.
Yeah,
event.
all right, I get what you mean.
But anyway, in MotoGP, bikes there cost a cool 2 mil.
That's wild, isn't it? So when you think of it like that, you can see why it perhaps does seem appealing to some people to think that they could like stretch the budget a little bit and have the same kind of bikes that the Tour de France riders are doing.
I think a lot of people will be like, oh yeah, this is the bike that the Movistar team have, and I've got the same frame, the same paint.
I can buy the same bike that someone's won the Tour de France on.
Yeah, and I think that is a really cool thing about cycling, that you can do that.
Whereas the motorbike side of things, like...
Have to be a millionaire.
Well, regardless of how rich you are, I don't think you can actually buy a MotoGP bike, and even if you could buy it, well, there's literally no way you could ride it at the weekends, like round the park or like to a cafe with your friends, is there?
No.
It just doesn't exist.
Not very realistic.
And which leads us on nicely to our next thing to discuss, which is options and specs that you have to choose from.
Okay, picture this. You can close your eyes if you want.
Yeah.
You're walking into a motorbike shop and you're looking for your new motorbike. You pick one from a fairly small selection that you like, and then you choose the engine size, you choose another few different spec options, the colour maybe, and you're good to go.
Love it. I've chosen my motorbike, it's brilliant.
What colour is it?
Pretty straightforward, it's black and green.
Thought so.
Flip side of this, you go into a bike shop, you've got far more different models to choose from.
Do you go aero, do you go lightweight, do you go lightweight aero? You've got loads of different sizes to choose from. Some bike brands have got 12 different sizes within the same model. Do you go carbon, steel, titanium? Do you go electronic shifting? Do you go SRAM, Shimano, SRAM? What crank lengths do you have? Power meter? What saddle? What handlebar width? What colour? Do you go maybe custom paint? Pedals? Crank length?
So many different options to choose from.
Anything else?
Tyres, wheels.
Yeah. So what you're saying is by having so many different options, you are driving the price up of the bike.
100%.
And I guess you could argue if you had less options, the price of the bike could come down.
100%.
And it would be way cheaper. But it doesn't really work that way because there are so many different aspects of a bike that manufacturers need to get right. So they need to have a bike that fits hundreds and thousands of different people.
Yeah.
And that is one of the most important parts of a bike. It needs to fit you correctly. But also, as you mentioned, there's lots of different, gears and X, Y, Z things that need to fit on that bike. So they need to make it really adaptable.
I think, this is the fact that there's so many different variations that everyone's got to account for. Whereas obviously, there's lots of different spec options in the motorbike world, the same as there are in the car world. But the numbers that you've got to choose from are far more reduced.
Less.
And you haven't got
like 2 or 3 options.
You haven't got like extra small, medium, large, extra large motorbike in the same model for all different options, have you?
No.
It's pretty crazy. But what does that lead us on to next?
Leads us on to profit margin.
Okay, so when it comes to profit margins, across all different industries, they're usually a pretty closely guarded secret in terms of actual numbers. But I've done a little bit of digging and research online, and I've found that it's broadly considered the average profit margin for a motorbike sales dealership is around the 10% marker. So pretty conservative,
That's not
I'd
bad.
say. Yeah.
But then if you go to the road bike side of things, and according to the National Bike Dealers Association...
I bet you love that website, don't you?
Absolutely love it. The profit on road bikes is quite a bit more. It's closer to the 40% mark.
That seems quite high.
It does, but before you go thinking you're being ripped off, let's just think about this.
Okay.
So most road bikes will need a lot of assembly and setup, which eats into the shop's profit margin. But nothing vastly different to a motorbike. So you'd assume there's still plenty of profit left to run a successful bike shop. But if that is the case, why are we seeing so many bike shops close down?
Well, unfortunately, I think one reason for this is because some online retailers are selling at heavily discounted prices. So whilst the total number of bikes sold might seem high, the number which are sold and actually have that 40% profit margin on is likely to be quite low. And therefore, when a bike shop does sell a bike, well, they need to generate more money per sale to cover their costs. Well, that's my theory anyway.
And you know what? Maybe road bikes do just have a bigger profit margin. And either you're okay with that or you're not. Because you've got lots of different ways to go about trying to buy a bike. If you don't want to feel like you want to spend that crazy high amount of money on a super high-tech bike, well, you don't have to.
No.
You've got lots of different options. You could shop around and buy a second-hand bike. You could wait till stuff is discounted in the sales. If people aren't buying it, well, they have to discount it. Or if you do buy a second-hand bike, well, you're getting a far more value for your money, and someone else's wallet has had to pick up and on that big initial outlay.
Yeah, definitely. But whatever way you look at it, I think road bikes, especially at the top end of the price point, they are getting a little bit out of hand.
It's absolutely crazy, isn't it? So there you go. Those are some of what we feel are the important aspects to consider when you're trying to discuss how the hell a motorbike is costing the same as a road bike. But that's not everything though, and I am really keen to see how this discussion evolves in the comments section down below, so please do get involved.
Yes, definitely, and we hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to GCNTech for more tech-related videos.
Love it. Right, see you later. Bye.